Okie dokie. Well, I think there's no time like the present. Let's start now. So first of all, I'd like to welcome everybody to today's webinar with the Landsite, sponsored by Royal Mac 10. My name is Jamie Smith, the Senior Business Development Manager at the Landsite. My guest is Michael McQuade, one of the directors at Royal Mac 10. Him and I have been working together for a couple of years, and hopefully along may that continue. I'm looking forward to this one. Just a quick one on the Landsite. Just want to make sure that people who are not familiar with it, just give you a super quick background of it. It's a property platform used by developers, house builders, investors, and landlords. And the main aim is to become one centralized hub for the property sector, so people can find professional services, properties to rent or buy, or generally just sign up to the Landsite, take advantage of our 35,000 registered users, read the latest industry news. And if people do want to take a look a bit further into the Landsite, then go onto the website and then contact one of the team, and we'll certainly help you along with that. We are going to pass over to Michael. Today's webinar is on the UK structural warranty market. So over to you, Michael.
Cheers, Jimmy, thank you. I suppose, Jimmy, what we want to try and achieve today is to give the guys a bit of an overview of the sort of ins and outs of the broker market, and in particular the structural warranty market. I'm sure there's probably the guys have some questions for us, but there's in some cases, builders and developers, they're not fully aligned with the process of the structural warranties or the processes of a broker. So I just want we've got about 5 points to touch on, which I think is key to let the builders, developers, architects, social housing entities, anybody who would be involved in the process of sourcing a structural warranty for new build, social housing, refurbishment, conversion, commercial. We can provide cover on a whole range of topics. So I just want to begin by starting off with our role, Royal Mac 10's role as a broker. Some clients can sometimes be under the misunderstanding that by using a broker, their overall fee is going to be more expensive than it would be if you would go direct, or if you go direct, you get a better price. That generally doesn't work like that, and it's not entirely true. We as a broker have an agreement with the insurance company, so we earn our fee from the insurance company. We essentially bring those guys to business, and we get paid an agreed commission. So what we don't do, for example, if we get a quotation from one of our insurers, and that's X amount of pound, we don't then slap our fee on the end of that, which will overall increase the price for the client. So we, as I say, there's no disadvantage to a client by, well, from our opinion anyway, there's no disadvantage in using Royal Mac 10 because we don't charge an extra fee. We're there essentially the first protocol that if they register a scheme via us through one of our insurance partners, we're there essentially as the first protocol. If they are having any issues, if they need reports, if they need invoicing, anything like that chased, if it's a case where they could be having an issue on site with a particular surveyor or whatever that may be, they would then come to us, and we would then approach the insurance company on their behalf. So it's essentially it's an added on service, if you like, at no extra cost to the client. So it's always worthwhile noting that when you are going to a broker for whatever the insurance may be, it's always worth bearing in mind that it's not always going to be a case where the broker will add on. We do know there is some brokers within the market that will add a brokerage fee, but we don't do that. So I think it's important to sort of get that into the domain that when builders, developers are coming, they're not going to be charged any extra. on that. So, and then again, our role is important. We have excellent relationships with key staff and key personnel within our insurers. So, for example, if we're having an issue with a certificate that we need issued, we know the direct people who we need to speak to within our insurers in order to get that final certificate issued promptly, because what we don't want to do, we don't want to hold up any sales, we don't want to hold up any mortgages, particularly the way the market is at the minute. It's pretty volatile in terms of mortgages and interest rates. So we tend to get things done a lot quicker, but not even from a sort of an issuing point of view, but we can get quotes turned around a little bit quicker. We have great relationships with the underwriting team. We have great relationships with the board, that if we do have a particular issue, we know the direct people that we can go to at a high level, who generally will help and assist us where they can to achieve the outcome that we need. So it's, as I say, it gives us a little bit of a foothold in the market, and it then allows us to give our clients what we believe to be some of the best service and best customer service within the market. So I'm going to move on to our next point, and I think this is probably one of the most important points of the webinar, and we're going to compare A-rated insurance policies, again, non or unrated insurance policies. This is vital that people understand and our clients understand that the difference between A-rated and non-rated or unrated. I can't emphasize the importance that it's so important to have an A-rated or better policy in place when you're doing a structural warranty. This is quite obviously in case there is a structural claim on a major development. It can run into, some of our developments run into 20, 30, 40 million. If there is a claim via a non-rated insurer who perhaps doesn't have the financial stability or financial resources of an A-rated or better insurer, then in all likelihood it could lead to problems in terms of a claim getting paid out, or if there's even a partial claim for 2 million, 3 million or so on. So it's vital that when you are sourcing a structural warranty for your scheme, it doesn't matter how many units it's for. It could be for 5 units, it could be for 500 units. It's vitally important that you always do your due diligence. Who is the scheme provider, if you want to call it that? Who is the actual insurer behind the scheme? Ask all these questions. If you are dealing with a particular scheme administrator or provider, they should have no issue in giving you the details of the insurer. They should have no issue putting that on their quotations. They should have no issue giving you a link or at least a brochure to their underwriting capacity in terms of the financial resources, the rating that particular insurer carries. If you request that, and if it isn't forthcoming, I would be asking them a little more sort of questions on that. And if any provider within our market can't give you a copy of their policy and can't confirm that it's a particular rating and of a certain financial strength, that would send the alarm bells ringing for me right away, because we all have it. We all have policies at hand. We can send it within a matter of minutes. There's no reason why it would ever get delayed. So just keep that in mind. Just do your due diligence. Obviously, make sure that the provider is registered within the UK. They're FCA registered. They're also registered via the Financial Services Compensation Scheme. So there is a few things to bear in mind. And also, I would always bear in mind that sometimes when you're comparing A-rated to non-rated, people say, yeah, well, they're 10, 20% cheaper. Of course, they're going to be 20% cheaper. They're not the same. It's, they use the analogy, it's apples and pears, really. It isn't the same level of cover. It's not the same financial strength behind it. You know, if you use a car analogy, you know, you could go and buy a you know, a Vauxhall for X amount of pound, but you wouldn't be able to buy a Range Rover for the same amount of money. You know, but they're still both cars. They still do the same thing, but one's simply better than the other. And it would give, obviously, your funders and perhaps your purchasers better peace of mind that, of course, you have the correct level of cover and, you know, it's A-rated, which will always give funders that little bit more sort of peace of mind that they're in good hands when it comes to the structural warranties. So just to move on to our next point, and I've purposely put this in at point 3 because I wanted to get the other two out of done first. I suppose people always say, well, who is Royal Mark 10? You know, what do they do? Or, you know, who are they? What's their background? Royal Mark 10 was set up in 2014, and we had a few sort of delays, if you like, getting to market, but we've been trading in the UK market as Royal Mark 10 from 2016. I've been involved personally in the structural warranty market from 2008, late 2008, early 2009. And I have been doing structural warranties for the entire time. I have never had another job doing any other form of insurance. I've always done structural warranties. Our other director also has over 30 years experience in the construction industry, so be it, has only got about 7 years from an insurance point of view, but the background is there within the construction industry. We have offices here in Belfast, and we have one in Manchester, and we have a virtual office that we use several times a year in London. And we probably work with some of, well, there's no probably about, we work with some of the biggest construction companies throughout the UK. You know, the name drop some of the guys, particularly in round sort of South London. We deal with Galliard Homes, which would be one of our big clients, where we are just in the process of finalising a PLC in London that we've been talking to for the last 2-3 months, and it's nearing completion. They just haven't put pen to paper, so to speak. So I'll keep them on the wraps for now. But those are the types of clients that we deal with. You know, PLCs, large privately owned construction companies, but we also deal with smaller construction companies. There's guys that are building 10 units per year. There's guys building sort of 5-6 sites per year. So there's no level of which we won't work with. You know, we deal with really small clients and we deal with really large clients, and everybody sort of mixed in between. So there's no issues with dealing with clients. We never like clients to think that, you know, they can't come to us because they've only got 2 houses or, you know, 5 units or whatever to build. We're grateful to deal with everyone. But it was just to give an over sort of view and the sort of level that we are dealing with. We deal with schemes at 25, 30, 40 million. We have a scheme at the minute out for 50 million. That is looking pretty positive as well, and hopefully that will come to fruition in the next sort of 4 to 6 weeks. But again, these are the sorts of clients that we can deal with. These are the sorts of schemes that we can arrange cover on via our insurance partners in the UK. So yeah, I mean, in terms of the appetite, you know, we're happy to, you know, we can look at conversions, we can look at social housing schemes, we can look at refurb. Predominantly new build would always be initially your bread and butter, so to speak. But it, you know, so there's nothing really in terms of a structure we would decline until we look at it. Of course, we look at certain things in a bit more depth in terms of the technical information and whatnot. You know, when we may sit with the insurers and we may take a decision that that particular scheme or that particular client just isn't for us for one reason or another. But generally, we will have a look at every application, and if it fits the appetite for our insurers, then it is something that we can do. the process, I suppose, of working with Royal Mark 10, just to touch on a little bit, it's a very straightforward process. So it's a case of, we ask for our proposal form to be completed, very straightforward, industry standard really. And generally, if we get all the information into us, we will have terms within sort of 5 working days from our insurer. That's kind of the turnaround that we look at, about 5 working days. The process thereafter continues to be very straightforward. If you, the client, say that you're happy enough to go with the quotation, we receive payment, and within usually same day, depending what time the payment comes in at that afternoon. But if it's early morning, usually same day, the client will have their conditional letters, they will have their invoices, and within 48 hours, a surveyor will have touch base to begin their site visits. And there will be 7 site visits. Well, sorry, there'll be between 5 and 7 site visits throughout the course of a build. And after each site visit, the client will be given a PDF report that has been generated on site by the surveyor. And on that report, the client will see if there was any issues flagged by the surveyor, that those will be on the report. If there was nothing flagged by the surveyor, then there will be nothing on the report. So again, all fairly straightforward process. Then we come to completion, and all we'll ask for is building control, gas, if it's applicable, electrical, and EPC certs. And once we get those in, we're issuing final completion certs within 48 to 72 hours. So again, there's nothing overly complicated about it. It's a very straightforward process. And we as a broker, we believe that we make that process for our clients a lot easier and a lot sort of straightforward and smoother. Again, another one I want to touch on is lender approval. Most people within the industry, particularly if you're building, sort of 5 or 6 sites, you would be well aware, lender approval for a policy is vital. Again, I can't stress the importance of ensuring that a provider who you may be looking at has adequate lender approval. Because of course, if they don't have lender approval, you may get a mortgage declined when you're trying to sell, or it may make that process a lot more difficult to do. So I will always suggest, do your due diligence. It used to be the Council of Mortgage Lenders, where you could have found who approves what sort of provider, pardon me, but now it's moved to the UK Finance website, so you can find all that, do your research, and perhaps maybe speak to your solicitor, ask them to do the research on the policy. But I would always make sure that the lender approval is adequate, because you don't want to build a site of 5, 10, 20 units, and then come when you're trying to get mortgages for none of the mortgages or solicitors will accept the policy. Then you're left with 20 units that you can't sell, which is essentially why you're building them. So always bear that in mind in terms of lender approval. Our next sort of topic is just to touch on our social responsibilities and what we do as a company, and trying to give a little bit back to our communities, and allow to give a little bit back to the communities where our clients are building. So we come up with the idea a few years back that we would touch base with local football foundations. So particularly in Premier League football foundations, Everton Football Club would have been our first one. And the plan of that was really to try and give something back to Everton, because Liverpool as a city, to us, have been very good. We have a lot of business, a lot of really good clients in Liverpool as a city. And the plan is, what we had sort of broached to those guys, and we do it with our clients, is if they register a scheme with us within Liverpool, we will then make a donation back to the foundation, which will in turn, when the client gives us the business, we then will make that donation to Everton, and it just allows the client then to give through a third party, I suppose, a little bit back into the city, a little bit back into the area and the location that they're working. and it will. Yeah, we do that. We do that throughout the country. Where we work with Bristol, Leeds, Oldham, Salford, and of course Everton. And the process doesn't change. When we touch base with clients, whether it be a social housing entity, private, the same concept applies. Should they give us the business within that area, we have to win the business on merit, of course. It has to be done on service, it has to be done on price, level of cover, etc. But yeah, we give a little bit back then to their communities, their football foundations, who then do incredible work within their communities, from food banks, education, sport. And it's all generally based in and around children and child poverty, and getting children and teenagers and steps to work, etc., etc. So there's a whole range of things that we do via our social responsibilities, but it also ties the clients into getting a little bit of PR as well, because I suppose without them giving us the business, we wouldn't be in a position to do it. And that's really that really appeals to a lot of our clients, and our particularly our bigger developers who would have a really good social responsibility ethos. So it works very well for those guys. So I've touched on basically everything that I think is the important things to touch on. I don't want to go into it too much. I don't want to be boring anybody with structural warranties, because it's not probably the most exciting topic in the world. But if there is any questions about anything I've spoke about, or the structural warranty in general that I may have missed, feel free to throw them at me.
Yeah, just on that point, firstly, thank you very much, Michael. Very insightful. One of the things I did want to mention at the beginning is that the Q&A box has always been there, but I did forget to mention it. So like Michael said, what usually happens anyway is people always email him directly, and I'm sure he will answer your questions privately. And I've noticed we've also had quite a few people join the webinar quite a bit late. So just be reassured that this is being recorded. We will be putting it on our socials and also pinned at the top of Royal Mac's profile. So
we've just sorry James, we've just got a question there from James Davies. Will the expected reduced volume in new builds have an impact on warranty prices? James, the answer to your question is yes, but I don't believe it's going to be because of the reduction in new builds, but it is because of the increase in material cost, construction cost, labour. So for example, 2-3 years ago, you may well have been able to build a development for £10 million, and that development may now be worth, in terms of a rebuild or a sum insured, could be worth £13-14 million because of the increase in, as I say, materials, energy, labour. So that in turn will increase the structural warranties fee. But our fees are the same. We generally will work on a guideline of a percentage. So let's assume we're working on, which we don't, but to give you an idea, if we're working on 10% of a sum insured, that 10% doesn't change. What is changing, unfortunately, is the cost to construct a development site. So that will in turn increase the warranty cost, unfortunately. We've just got one from Estelle Price. Estelle, how do insurance companies get A-rated? This is probably, Estelle, a little bit over my pay grade, if I'm being honest. There's a lot of things that will constitute to the strength of an insurance company. So obviously their financial strength, naturally enough, how long they've been in the market, have they had any claims, how well they have dealt with claims, how well they have paid claims, their written premium for a period over 3-5 years, whether they have investment in the company, whether they have reinsurance links in the background. That can all contribute to a particular insurer getting a particular rating. So that could be C+, it could be B+, B-, and then all the way up to A, AA, and AAA rating. But it takes, as I say, there's a lot of factors that contribute to a company becoming A-rated, which, to be honest with you, I wouldn't really get involved in, and I wouldn't really know the ins and outs of the mechanics of it. But I do know from a very brief understanding that those are the various things that the rating agencies like Moody's or AM Best will look at when they're giving out particular ratings.
Okay, so we'll give another 10-20 seconds to see if anyone pops into the Q&A box at the bottom.
No problem.
But yeah, again, thanks very much, Michael.
Pleasure.
Yeah, we touched on some of the key points there, and as I mentioned to you before we recorded, it's the property sector is in the limelight, so it's nice to get some reassurance on everything and know that there's people fighting our corner when it comes down to cost and reassurance and everything like that. Yeah. So it's much appreciated.
I think it will. I think obviously, as I said at the start of the webinar, Jamie, that obviously there's a lot of noise being made at the moment from Bank of England and the Treasury in terms of recessions. But the fact of the matter is, construction can't stop. Construction cannot stop. They would be the biggest employer, if you like, both directly and indirectly. It's not just house builders that would. They wouldn't just stop. You obviously have joiners, you would have bricklayers, but then coming away from the direct people involved in it, you would have the likes of suppliers, so bathrooms, kitchens, tiles, carpet, etc., etc. So there's a whole vast network of course, the direct people will take the brunt of it, but there's a whole vast network of indirect employees, and that they just can't stop building, whether that be private, whether it be social. We've got such a shortage in the UK in terms of housing as it is, and they will probably have to tighten their belts a little bit, but I believe that construction will stay pretty strong, hopefully through the next 12-18 months.
Yeah, well, hopefully. I'm sure everyone on this call is hoping the same. Brilliant. Okay, well, I think that's unless you've got anything to add, Michael, it's maybe a good time to end it.
Yeah, no, look, I've covered what I believe to be the key points when source and structure warranty, and there doesn't appear to be any more questions. Just bear with me. No, so yeah, look, I'm happy to leave it at that note. If any of the guests want to contact me directly or ask the question privately, more than happy for them to pass my contact details. And I hope I've given somebody some help or some positive advice.
Yeah, I'm sure you have. Well, thanks to everyone for coming. As I mentioned, we will be sending it round and sharing the webinar in its entirety for the rest of the week. So have a great afternoon, everyone, and thanks again, Michael.
Lovely. Cheers, guys. Thanks, Jimmy.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.